Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Happy Writing Show. We had such a great time in the last few weeks. We had some distinguished guests came to the show, and we want to thank you for our organizer and a supporter and great friends. Joanna Lee, so is my wonderful friend, author, Mr. Tom Brown. Without their help, the last few weeks would be not as happy as we are today. And we had a great time with our special guests, and we also had a wonderful show, and we had a lot of wonderful ideas. We interviewing a few authors, telling how we can write novels in 6 months. And so, we had a wonderful time, and I want to thank you so much for your support and join our show, and we want to continue that tradition continuously for years to come. In the meantime, we want to talk about what did we do in the last few weeks. Joanna Lee, you had in charge with the April segments because it was the month of poetry, and you are the specialized writer about portraits and things like that. So tell us what we have done in April, and we talk about what we have done in May.
Sure. Chen, first I want to thank you on behalf of Tom Sanchez, Prunier, and myself. We had so much fun during the 3 weeks that you gave us the time and the space to share our thoughts on poetry. We talked a lot. We had a lot of guests. We had a lot of poetry performances. We talked about how to write good poetry, venues in the city, of which there are a lot of poetry happenings going on in Richmond. We gave some advice for people who want to perform, whether on the open mic or a longer, fuller performance. We talked about how to get published, whether it's being in magazines or a full-length book. So we really covered the spectrum, everything from how to get started writing all the way through publication. And it was really such a joy. We had so many wonderful guests come and join us that we hope this will continue to go on, as you said, in years to come.
Yes,
so thank you again.
Well, we thank you. You're such a wonderful writers and such a wonderful people. And it certainly is our honor to having you on our Happy Writing Show. And Tom, I also want to thank you so much for helping us to organize this, and you gave us a lot of quick ideas. And so what is going to be our plans in reference to this Happy Writing Show?
Well, first, I'd also like to thank you for all you've done to give us the time to do this and to reach out into the community.
Yes.
And I think it was a worthwhile endeavor.
Right.
As for plans for the show, you mean in the future?
Yes, sir.
Well, it would be nice to periodically, we could perhaps do something, to talk about writing, and. Certainly next April, every National Poetry Month, and it's sort of it seems like you tend to see poetry in April, maybe in October. You see a lot of prose writers start getting to work. I don't think they have an official prose writing month yet, but
it's National Novel Writing Month, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Honored guests and audience, I'm sure that you're kind of surprised that why I asked Tom, what are we going to do about this Happy Writing Show? You may think, Chen, this is your job, but actually, this is Tom's great idea. He motivated me to have this Happy Writing Show back last October, and Tom came to join my show, Happy Life. We talk about the importance of writing and the importance of inspiring other people to write, and we came up with the idea of this Happy Writing Show together. So Tom, I want to thank you for your support, your ideas. You have enriched my life by just bringing this program into our community, and hopefully that working together, with Joanna Lee and Tom Pruitt and other writers, we can continue to inspire other people to continue to think, to continue to communicate, more importantly, continue to write. And so that's why I want to ask you, what are we going to do next? So I know this is a little surprise to you,
Thank you.
but in the same time, I value your support and your friendship and your thoughtfulness, and your inspiration to give me this opportunity to be part of this program to help the Richmonders to understand writing better, the poetry better. And as I told you in the past, I'm not a great writer, not yet, but I'm keep trying. But I like to talk to people. I'm a communicator. So from a literature's point of view, I think I have a lot more to learn. So would you mind to tell us, either one of you, how do you interpret literature versus communication by oral?
Do you want to tackle literature?
Well, I want to say, I guess from a poetry standpoint, it began as an oral tradition before people knew how to write, before writing per se had been discovered. And some of the great myths like Homer's Odyssey, they were orally passed down from person to person. There's same tradition with the Celts in Britain and Ireland and some other places, is that their legends, their histories were so important to the people, but they had no other way to pass them on, to communicate with the next generation other than the oral tradition. And so memory and repetition and oral recitation were very, very important. And then with the discovery of writing, people were able to keep good records of their legends, of their histories, their myths. And that, I think, was really the birth of literature, with writing itself and people wanting to inscribe their histories for generations to come.
Well said.
Absolutely. Now I've read that like the Indian Vedas, though, were originally oral, and that some of that can be very accurately passed down by repetition, as you mentioned, and. So by reciting forwards and backwards and having many different people do it, they were able to verify that no words were changed until they got to the point where now it's written.
I see.
So there's, and then I guess I think in Mesopotamia, maybe some of the first written or use of writing, and I think it was on balls of clay rather than tablets, and they would inscribe the characters on that, and then it's just evolved. So into many different types of writing and recording.
Well, many of our viewers maybe just first time come to join us. So Joanna Lee, would you mind to tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to write, and why you want to specialize in poetry, and tell us how we can learn to write better poetry.
Well, I started writing poetry when I was very little. Pretty much as soon as I could write, I was writing poetry. And then through grade school and college, I kind of left it. I went off to study other things, to study science and medicine, and I've always felt it was just an important enough part of my life that I wanted to come back to it. And I've really been fortunate in the past several years to be able to focus more on my writing and come back to what I consider my roots as a writer, and spend some time improving my poetry, reading a lot of poetry, communicating with other writers, learning, going to workshops, hosting readings and open mics, and just seeing what the world of poetry has to offer here locally as well as other places. And I would say the most important thing to remember, if you're, especially as a poet or any kind of writer, you want to become a better writer, is to read. Read what other people are writing. In my case, read other poets, read books, magazines, online, and just keep reading, and you will get better, and keep writing. Don't get discouraged. I mean, it's something that, like any skill, it gets better the more you do it.
Right. So after you write something meaningful, you probably have a lot of self-satisfaction, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
And you couldn't wait to share that information with other people as well.
I mean, it was an incredible feeling putting my first book together and just seeing the body of work, you really did feel like you had accomplished something, like say, yes, this is something I did, it's my creative property, and whether it sells a copy or it sells 1,000,000 copies doesn't matter. It's something here I can have in my hands that I created.
You have accomplished something. Yeah, it's very, very strong feeling, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure that, by the way, congratulations. You know, you had done a whole lot, and you know, helping a lot of young people to continue to write. And I also knowing that you had certain classes already, right? And teaching or associated with poetries. Can you tell us what organization that you're having by doing something like this?
Sure. I want to back up a minute. I have never, this is very interesting, I never studied writing at all. Not in any college class.
Okay.
As long as I've been in school, it seems like forever. No English classes, not since high school. So I'm really self-taught as far as my own writing, but I have attended workshops at Slam Richmond, which is every Saturday night here in town.
So you host them?
I host workshops as well, or
Good.
co-host workshops. Tom Sanchez Prunier hosted a workshop
the urban
for me
farm
at the Urban
what's it called?
Farmhouse.
Farmhouse, yeah.
Right.
On
So
Chaco,
if some of our audience would like to
Chaco
get in
Bar.
touch with you, how can we find you? Or learn how to write portraits. Can you tell us a little bit how we can get in touch with you, the telephone numbers or websites or whatever that you'd like to share with us?
I guess the best way, the most comprehensive way is to go to my website because it's easiest to remember, and it's
Sure.
the10thmuse.com, hyphenated between the words. But there's my contact information, email, how to get in touch with me. It would probably be the best way.
Okay.
And we have pages on Facebook. We have links to all of our events that are going on around town, whether readings or workshops or critique groups.
Well, I certainly think that some of our, audience would like to hear what you have to say and what have you been written. Are you ready for that now, or you will until a little bit later time? You have anything you want to share with us about what you have been written, want to share with our audience?
Well, I'll say really quickly, maybe we'll do some readings a little later. But
a little later? Okay, great. Okay.
I am working on 2 manuscripts currently. One is a book of poetry about Richmond. It's Richmond flavored. Hopefully we'll have some photography in it that I've done as well, pertaining to the city and its history and the river. And the other is a collaborative work that I'm working on with a friend in Norfolk, which is a lust-flavored book of poetry.
Yes.
And Tom did some videography for us at our first reading in February. So that was
I videoed it, and it's out on YouTube. So you can, and you have parts of it on the 10thmuse.com as well?
I do. I have.
So you can access it from there.
Well, Mr. Tom Brown is also an outstanding writer. I read several of his books. He's extremely interesting. Excellent writer, very rich with vocabularies, a lot of beautiful descriptions. Tom, can you tell us a little about your background and what inspired you to write, and are you going to continue to write more books, or what kind of book have you been published? Can you share those information with our audience?
Well, I guess as far as my background, I don't have credentials, and somewhat like Joanna, only I lived in Sweden when I was young and took a correspondence course in English to learn some of the basics of grammar. But it was probably around that time also that I started reading a lot, and I just always enjoyed reading, and I guess I started with Charles Dickens, and then science fiction quite a bit, and Ray Bradbury and Arthur C. Clarke and others, and so that I just kept reading, and after a while, I guess by my late teens, sometimes I read a couple books a week.
Oh,
so I was totally
couple books a week.
Yeah, and so I always enjoyed it, and then I think after I was first married, I loved to make up stories for the children.
Oh, nice.
And we would, we'd go camping or whatever, and so I'd like to tell stories and tales, and I started writing some of them down. So I had
Right.
a couple children's stories, but from there, I guess I was sort of a suppressed writer until
Closet
in my
writer.
50s.
Ah,
So
well.
and then I actually sat down and decided to seriously write short stories and novellas. And I'm now working on my first novel, and I'm taking Greg Smith's course.
Greg Smith,
to-
yeah, he was
as a
in our show a
writer's-
couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Very wonderful gentleman, very knowledgeable, and he had a class teaching how to write novels in 6 months.
That's right.
So you're one of
Yeah. So yeah, I
students?
just started,
Uh-huh,
and for me, I like the discipline.
Okay.
You know, where you, I need to sort of put everything else aside. Now that I have, I can make the time. So I'm going to do that and try their, their way of doing it. And I'm going to write it's called The Land Under the Lake, an historical romance.
Oh,
So
that would be the next book?
That's the next book, next novel.
Next novel. Oh, I couldn't wait to read it.
Hopefully in 6 months. Well, that's the draft.
The draft,
The revision
okay.
is probably as much or more work.
Okay. Well, one thing I have learned, as always, Joanna Lee and Tom, you both are very, very humble persons, and you have such a rich knowledge about writing, and you keep telling us that you continue need to read and need to write, and my fellow friends and audience. One thing I learned in the last few weeks from the fellow writers and friends that came to the show is that it's never too early or too late to learn, especially writing. You can just write a paragraph, your thoughts. You can share with yourself or maybe with friends, families, and hopefully that, by doing so, you can communicate with other people by writing. And for myself, since you're talking about you and talk about, Tom, and I think I would like to talk about my experience of writing. I've been a businessman since I was the age of 17. For years, I just kept chasing businesses and, try to do things that I thought was meaningful to me. And I never thought about writing anything, and I've written a lot of newspapers, and I enjoy reading newspapers, and I think I learned a lot by reading newspapers. But I never read any books, never thought about literature much. As a businessman, I put in a lot of hours, with my business, my family, and focus on, how to develop my commercial real estate business, open up more restaurants. At one point, I had 5 restaurants. I opened up like 15 restaurants total through my careers. And so I never thought about writing. But one day, I went to the school and talked to 5 classes students, and I just had the opportunity to try to inspire the students how to live a happy life. So I came up with the acronym, by helping others or receiving help, which is the H, helping, you find happiness. And when you have a positive attitude, you find happiness. When you have patience, try to understand the situation better, you find happiness. When you have passion, try to learn how to love your job or doing things that you like, you find happiness with passion. Believe in ourselves that yes, we can, that long you find a lot of happiness. And sharing your love with, the family and friends and even people you don't know, but those love you come back in a stream of happiness, you find happiness. And after I had cancer surgery, I told myself, if you can improve 1 step each time, 1% each day, you'll be happy. So it does not mean, you need to win a lottery to be happy. So that improvement means happiness. And life may not be fair to us, but we must be fair in life. And when we understand fairness, we find happiness. And when you're learning and teaching, especially, like poetry, writing, or whatever, learning, education is so important. But whatever that you teach or learning, just like dancing, aerobics, or jumping, or whatever, teaching a little child how to walk, that's learning. When you're learning and teaching, that's a lot of fun, a lot of happiness. So I told this little story to the audience, which are the soon-to-be graduated high school students, and how to live a happy life. And their comments and their evaluation of my presentation enrich my life, and they also motivate me to write this book, which I never thought about that I become a writer. I never thought about anything about related to literature. So I wrote it because I was a communicator, So, ladies and gentlemen, so you don't have to have a strong background in writing or literature to begin to write, because all you need to do is just express your thoughts and express it in writing. And then, after I wrote a book, and I said, if I can help the students, I want to write this book. And you know what? I learned how to write. And now I wrote 2 books, and they both published. One is called Happy Life, and with the acronym HAPPYLIFE, and also another fable that I wrote. It's called Noble Hearts Fly. And so I enjoyed writing. And all of a sudden that when you put something on a piece of paper and start communicating with the piece of paper and put them down of your thoughts, and all of a sudden that you become a writer. So, I never thought that I was a writer. So, by talking to you all, and I realized that all of a sudden I became a writer. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can become a writer in a very short time. And you don't need to any, learning or preparation or college degree or whatever. Just put your thoughts and your mindset to write something, and then you become a writer. And I want to congratulate you to have a great future in writing. Now we can come back and talk about, our show. And so do you have any idea that you want to talk about the rest of the show, so to entertain our guests?
Well, I'd like to hear Tom read a little from one of his books, if that'd be all right.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. I'm delighted to talk about his book. I enjoy reading it too.
Okay. Well, actually, I have, I think first I'd like to read from a short story I wrote recently. And this isn't actually published yet. But this is based on some people I knew when I was growing up in Sweden. Well, they were Finnish who had become Swedish citizens. Okay. And it's a rather sad story. I won't give away the ending, but the story's called The Middle of Nowhere, and it takes place in Finland in the Second World War, and that is a part of the war that you don't hear as much about because it was very complicated, and the Finns were actually stuck in the middle themselves between the Nazis, and Hitler and Stalin and communism, and they had to make some tough choices. And one of my father's friends had fought in the Finnish army in Lapland and had befriended a German because they were fighting together. And as things changed in the war, their alliances changed. And he was forced to shoot his friend. Oh, and later in life, he committed suicide. So I thought it's good to tell about these things that happen in war because it feeds into the society. And some of these things, you don't always see the results, for 20 years, or it can be more immediate. And as a country, we have to be aware of all that's going on in the world as people, as the soldiers come back, they're bringing some of these things, and it's inevitable and not their fault, but it's happening, and we should be aware of it.
Understand.
So I'll just read an excerpt.
Okay, sure.
Information of the German Barbarossa offensive falling apart kept coming in, forming a broader, darker picture of what could happen to Finland that cast a spell of gloom on us all. As August wore on to September, I received word from our high command that they were beginning talks with Colonel General Zadnov in Moscow. In all probability, an armistice between Finland and the USSR would be signed within a week, requiring us to end our collaboration and cease all military activities, turning over all German personnel to Russia. I was to keep this secret, but had serious doubts this was possible since we worked so closely together and often shared our information. One evening I approached Dieter in the hotel lobby. "Have you ever had a real Finnish sauna? A savasana?" I asked. "I don't think so. What's the difference?" he asked. "The stones are heated by wood fire without a chimney, so the smoke fills the room and purifies the air. When the sauna is hot, the fire is allowed to die and the smoke is ventilated out. The stones give off enough heat for the whole sauna. It's the best." "I would like to try it," he said. Good, I'll tell Vera to prepare one for tomorrow. It's the little log building on the way to the lake. We can drive out from the hotel before dinner. It was twilight when we arrived. The sauna was only 40 yards from Lake Markajarvi shoreline. Some preferred to jump in the lake to cool off, but I had been bitten by mosquitoes so badly I decided never to take the chance again and always use the showers. Dieter and I had just returned to the sauna room from the shower when the other men left to cool off. Dieter, I said, I'll let you in on a secret that you may already have begun to suspect. Finland will sign an armistice with Zadnov, agreeing to demobilize our forces. We're to disarm you and take you as prisoners. You're to be turned over to Russia if you remain in Finnish territory. When is this to happen? He asked. In 2 days, Friday. We've got 5,000 men to move out of here, but we can do it under cover of darkness tomorrow night, he said. Well, there are some other problems too, I replied. The Russians are only 5 kilometers to the east. They'll be watching, and we have to make it look good. If you put your men in the underground billets by the lake, the old trenches they used to use, we can come in from the south and fire into them just after your men escape. That might fool the bastards long enough so you can get to the north to rejoin the Barbarossa forces. He looked at me impassively. Of course, you wouldn't fire on us while we were in the trenches. Only after you were safely underway to make it look good. You have my word. And the other officers, will they all cooperate? We fought together for many years. They'll do this. What do you think if we make our way to Petsamo? He asked. No, not Petsamo. That will be ceded to the Russians, maybe Korea, and then a northern port. We shook hands. Thank you, my friend, and thank you for the sauna. I trust you, he said. When I got back to my room, I summoned my orderly. Corporal Unrau, you must see Major Ehrlichman on the double. He has new orders for you. He could tell something was up. I was not usually abrupt with him. Have I done something wrong, sir? He asked. Corporal, the whole war has changed as of this moment. It's not about you. You've been outstanding, and I want to thank you for your excellent service. I'm going to miss it. He looked perplexed. Thank you, sir. It's been an honor to serve you. Goodbye and good luck to you, I said. I went to headquarters and told of my plan to fire into the empty trenches. It seems I was not the only one thinking along those lines. We contacted the field officers and gave orders, making sure everyone was on the same page. We were ready. Back at the hotel, Vera was furious that half the places were empty and so much food had to be stored to avoid wasting it. Those that came to the table ate hastily. The lobby was cold and empty, and the piano lid was down. Oddly, I felt calm and slept well that night, the sauna having relaxed me. I had a peculiar dream about driving with Helena through a barren city with high brick buildings. The road was narrow and empty, and then we heard the most beautiful piano music coming from an open window. I had never heard the piece before, and neither had Helena. She asked me who could be playing such a lovely song. Then I awoke with tears on my cheeks. I dressed and went to headquarters, where I was informed the Russians were sending a small platoon with Allied Commission observers to Sala. I contacted the German command and informed them of the situation. They would have to move out immediately or be forced into a confrontation that we may not be able to control. The timing was not good now, but it could still be done. We moved into position near Lake Markajarvi and waited. At noon, I got a call that the German troops were ready to leave. We gave orders to attack from the south, but to fire into the ground and the trenches to miss our former allies. There were no casualties. We claimed only to have wounded a few, but they somehow managed to escape. When I returned to headquarters that afternoon, there were Soviet officers waiting to see me. I walked over to them. I'm Major Solonin. Polzin, said a haggard-looking colonel. You arrived much sooner than expected, I said. He looked me over. Apparently several hours too late. They escaped. Did you take any prisoners, any at all? He said, trying to maintain his composure. We wounded a few. They were transported with the rest. Do you think we are idiots? Do you think I don't know what you did? You must uphold the terms. I have observers here, he yelled, pointing at the 3 men in civilian clothes that watched your men fire into the empty trenches. Colonel Polzin, we simply didn't get there soon enough. They knew everything beforehand. We fought with them side by side. There was no way to keep any secrets from them. You'll go after them now, capture them and turn them over to me. If you can't capture them, kill them. They have a huge lead. We don't have the trucks or resources. They're gone. I'm sorry, Colonel. I could sense he saw the futility of his demands. Is there anything else? He stared at me in a cold rage. I have over 10,000 troops just over the border. There'll be severe reprisal if you don't adhere to the terms of the treaty. From here on out, all Germans will be captured or killed. His face was nearly touching mine now. I saw his eyes were dead and gray, as though they were covered by a third lid, like a shark's jaw. Is that clear, Major? Yes, Colonel, I understand, I said.
Oh.
So they, I spent a good deal of time, a couple months, researching the story, because it's a very complicated war, and changing sides, and a lot of treaties involved.
Right.
And I used in the beginning a line from Dylan Thomas, "Great is the hand that holds dominion over man by a scribbled name," which I feel that it fits with the story. And that's how I think often poetry and prose can be related, because the poetry can be inspiration.
Right.
And sometimes you can say something and with just a few verses, that it may take pages of prose to write.
Right.
But the two, can complement one another.
Oh, well, it's very, very touching. Your thoughts?
Well, I had kind of a sneak preview because Tom had given me a copy to read some weeks ago, and I was lucky enough to be able to read it beforehand.
I value your opinion.
Yes.
And I think I didn't know anything about the history of that specific geographic area during that period of history, and so it was hard for me to keep track of everything that was going on. It is so complex and so complicated, but I think you do a really nice job of separating the politics and all the entanglements from the people in the story to make it interesting to the reader and engaging at the same time.
Yes, thanks.
Well, Tom's writing is always very, very much engaging, very rich in words and thoughts. I always appreciate that, and I want to thank you for sharing the stories. I think thank you for listening to our audience. I hope that they are entertained. But in the same time, and thinking about writing related to wars, there's so many different stories related to tragedies, wars especially. And it seems to me that it's inevitable that, human conflicts, and because we all want different things. And we've thought, by thinking what I'm saying today, there's an old saying, we want to treat others the way that we want to be treated. And now I'm having a new philosophy now. Is treat the others the way that they want to be treated. When you're really thinking about it, because we always think that we are right. But it's not always what do you care about the other people. What do they think that they want to be treated? The war, when they say we're not free you, we want to give you the freedoms, or we want to put you in the cage. Whatever that we think that we thought we are right. But at the same time, when you are comparing from one society to the other, we really need to look into a little bit more deeper, what they're accustomed to, and what makes them happy.
Empathy is good, but sometimes things are more complicated, and it's difficult to put yourself in someone else's shoes and know why are they doing this.
Exactly.
And
by listening to you,
sometimes you need to listen to them. And
right, by listening to your story, and thinking about a war, and it just come to the gaps of my feeling. We all want to be treating the others the way that we want to be treated. But at the same time, when you think about conflicts, you really have to think about how they feel, and a lot of time that we overlooking that, and that conflict just continue. And I think, in order for us to stop all of these major conflicts among people or country, I think writing is extremely important. Communication is extremely important. Sometimes, a lot of little small misunderstanding or with our explanation, it can spark within the anger, and then they just hold it and hold it and hold it, and then all of a sudden that they want to bust out. So I think writing, to express our feelings and let people know how we feel, to find a balance in life, and also, thinking about, yes, we want to treat other people the way that we want to treat it. We need to do a step further. How do they want us to treat them? and with that communication, I think we'll be open up a new channel, to able to put people together and to eliminate as much conflict as possible. Of course, we all see things differently because we all have different philosophies, and we don't want to talk about politics just like what you talk about, we're separating people and politics. But unfortunately, in any society, when you have people in power, they always have politics. And but in the same time, we want to treat others the way that they want to be treated. Then all of a sudden that you put the politic aside. Like if I'm a Republican, I say, well, we won't treat you the way that I want to be treated. Then you have your own perspective.
Can I
please
pose a question to the two of you? What do you think the role of literature is in modern society? Can literature do anything to help heal some of these conflicts or some of these differences? Do you think it has a role? Do you think it has a place? How specifically can it heal or help to bring people closer together?
I think it's very important, and has a lot to offer, to start people thinking. And so it's also interesting sometimes, though, how people interpret things. So you may have a story like the Full Metal Jacket, and someone watches it thinking it's a really cool war flick, and there's a lot of shooting and all that, and someone else may look at it and see that the cruelty involved, and to say that a special casing on the bullet is a more humane bullet for killing people, but overall I think it does good. It brings out things, gets people thinking, and plays a very important part of that. And often artists are at the forefront of this. I think it's important that artists they take the downward trip, and they see things that as they explore the inner self and the other side of things, and they come back to the outside world and report on this, and so that's very important, that artists do this and reveal some of these things.
Well, I definitely agree with Tom, and I think literature is extremely important. We learn many lessons through it. Literature has helped us to understand history and bring out the best of the human sense, the love, and the care, the empathy. We all learn from failures. We learn from tragedies, and unfortunately, they happens. We try to find a balance in our lives. And Johnny Lee, I think that you are very gave us a platform to talk about this. I want to thank you for bringing this up. I think this need to be addressed, not just in this forum, but continually with all the other writers, because that's why we write. We write because we want to better our society. We want to better ourselves. We want to inspire the other people. And I think by writing in stories and let people read those stories, they understand the rights from the wrongs. They understand, what can inspire them, and they bring out the better personality of them, the characters. And that's why I want to have this writing show, because we all have hard times, and we all have misfortunate things surrounding our family, our friends, and ourselves. But when you write them down, write something, and it gives you a platform to balance yourself. Just try to express. And sometimes say, well, why people yell and sing while they're taking a shower? But that's one way to entertain themselves, one way to let out, And I think writing is one form of letting your pressure away, getting out. And express yourself. And
therapy.
Therapy.
For a lot
I think
of
it's
people.
extremely therapy. But more importantly, if you share those stories with other people, they can learn from it. Especially, tragic stories and literatures. Talk about history, the wars, and let people understand, that we, those paths, is not a happy journey for life. We live only a very short time comparing to our age of galaxy. But while we are here, why we have to make other people any more hard time than what it was, and likewise, so, and if everybody have that mutual respect, the sense of common courage, and common, the way that I want to express is that, we all have one goal in life, is to better our lives and better lives of the other people. Why do you want to become the best? Because you want to help other people. Why you want to become a good mother? Why do you want to become a better citizen? Because you want to be a better your life while helping others to better their lives. If we all have that common courtesy and a common goal, and I think this world is going to be a better world. And I think respect is extremely important. And I think we need to write more stories about how respect can benefit our lives. Because a lot of these times, especially you see a lot of bombings, and societal actions. And I think, if they respect human life, they would not have conduct those actions or planning those, events. And all those can be stopped it. And I think literature can be a major part of it. The communication can be a major part of it. So I think that I want to thank you for bringing that subject up. And now I have another mission in my mind that how we can get this message out to a larger audience. Thank you so much. And what is your thoughts, Joanna Lee?
I think absolutely. As Tom, you were saying, artists in general, not only writers, but they tend to be at the forefront as far as social change and values. And I think it comes from having a slightly different perspective than what others tend to, and that they can, as you were saying, they can see it from the point of view of the other person, maybe. And they can look at the world in a slightly different enough way to say, what could we do better?
Right.
And then they have the voice through their, whatever their media is, to share that message with a wider audience, and hopefully to reach people who can in turn start to change the way they see things.
Right.
I've heard it said that poetry is the stuff of revolutions. In fact, I was part of a group that did activities last fall for 100,000 Poets for Change here in town, and a worldwide movement to kind of use our power as artists, as writers, as poets, to affect social change. And I think we're uniquely positioned to sort of be able to say how we see the world and how we'd like to see the world, and have people listen. So.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing.
I was going to say, well, it brings to mind Ezra Pound, and so he was kind of used to criticize in his poetry, going back a ways, but and there is a lot of criticism through poetry, and I think it's worthwhile, to bring these things out.
Yes, sir. Well, before we forget, the important part is about, I want you to show your talents and your writing and share those or some of those with our audience. So are you ready to maybe read a poem or poetry or some of your writing and let us enjoy that?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Well, please be yourself. Be our guest.
I'll read a piece. This is from my first book, which is a little old now. It was 2009. But it had a lot of my experiences in it that I went through in medical school, which was, they were very powerful experiences, very moving, and it was one of those things where you kind of wrote as therapy. I mean, you had to get it out somehow. Right. The dramatic way that you were involved in people's lives, the very intimate way you're involved in people's lives. So I'd like to read one of those poems.
Yes, please.
For you all now.
Thanks.
My first. I was running late that morning, double timing it across a February sunrise and frost-studded grass. I exchanged warm coat for white coat, hurried past veterans, huddled outside doorways, at bedsides, in walkers, landscape punctuated with crash carts and piles of dirty cotton sheets, their bed's privacy dictated by position of a curtain. In the one beside the window on the left was Mr. Jenkins, who'd come in for trouble breathing and had smiled at my half-hearted jokes. A respectful distance from his curtain, 2 nurses, one short, both nervous. I saw my coat and stared toward the bed where he was cold, pale, cold. I looked at him, called his name, looked at them, called again, looked at a loss, I guess, but I had to do something, so I felt his neck and wrist, clammy, just like they say. Put my ear to his chest, straining to hear silence. Silence. And you know, in med school, they teach you how hard you have to push on a man's breast to restart his heart. They don't tell you how hard it is to realize that sometimes it ain't gonna work. On the phone just outside, his wife. We haven't been in to check on him yet, Mrs. Jenkins. We'll call you back when we've seen him. Don't look at me like that. What would you have done?
Really, really touching. Great writing.
Thank you.
The way that you present it is very, very outstanding too. It's like performing art. Well, there's such a thing is called performance poetry.
There absolutely is. In our second poetry segment, we talked a little bit about that and how poetry can be written more to be heard aloud than read on the page in some cases, and there's been a whole subsection of poetry called slam poetry, which is competitive performance poetry, that's become quite popular recently and has just gained a lot of followers nationwide, worldwide. We had some great slam poets here that week, as I recall, and to me it's a hard thing to perform poetry. It's almost a different animal than when I'm writing to be read on the page. You have to think about where the pause is going to go, where's the dramatic bit, where's the juicy part, how can I capture my audience's attention. So it is a little bit different than writing for the page, although some people can go back and forth quite easily, and it is done quite successfully to be able to be read and appreciated on the page and read or heard aloud as well. So.
Well, Tom, I thought you did a wonderful job writing and performing. So what's your opinion about Joanna Lee's, what she just did a few minutes ago?
Outstanding.
Yes. It was really, really good. It was really good. You have
she
another
can feel
story?
it. You can see when you watch her, she feels it as she's reading.
Yes, yes.
So
you're drawing a picture of what you're writing, so that is awesome. Yeah, so you must be a great artist too, right?
I do some visual art as well.
Really?
Actually.
Oh, so that was a good guess. Huh? Now you know that I've been in the restaurant business for 43 years because I can relate to some of your skills by just listening to you. Or just a lucky guesser. Yeah, I mean, would you like to share another poem or poetry or writing with the audience? Because I enjoy so much, I'm sure that the audience enjoy a lot too. So would you like to share another?
How about Lament? Do you?
I do have Lament.
Yeah, do you mind? Yeah,
sure.
I think it's exciting.
I've read it a couple times, but I guess I'll comment afterwards. So,
okay, please.
Because it's something I like, because it kind of reminds me of some things that we need to do. And
okay.
So,
well, now I couldn't wait to own one of your books now.
Well, actually, since Lament is a very, very short piece, and this is again from the same book, I put 4 very short pieces together into one poem. So it's Negation, Caged, Decision, Lament. And there are 4 poems from the book together that I melded into one. So I hope it doesn't jar too much with what you remember, but I haven't made many changes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So.
Nice. Nice.
On a day 2 days after Palm Sunday, there were no births, and therefore no deaths. Instead, I sat at my cold aluminum desk and threw out words like pennies, watched through grudged windows the skeletons of trees endure. 2 weeks later, I painted my love with pink highlighter on the canvas of my own skin, tears streaming to make lurid confettied rivulets on my collarbone, navel, thighs. Covered in naked metaphor, I crouched on the floor of your third-storied room beside the window and couldn't see out. But I could smell the rain on the wind, the warmth in the air lofted skyward, soft and soughing. Untamed spring unfolds her wings and sings in words I cannot quite hear. There is existence, and then there is existence. That day, I trembled because I was afraid of both, walked home barefoot and bruised through the dense green of another boron-flared promise that there is no more terrible evil than the worship of old gods by young voices, their golden honeysuckle nectar caught virgin and unaware, by a loitering frost which always crouches beyond the next squirrel-eared trunk.
Great. I enjoyed that. You've elaborated it on it quite a bit. So I remember the second to last verse. So, and I guess if that reminds me of that sometimes it's time to get out of the way and let the young people start getting more control, especially when it comes to politicians who've been in office 30 years. Like if you have senators or congressmen, it's like time to go, after 30 years instead of worrying about getting reelected. And with a lot of things, because the world's, it's the younger people are really sort of, you're at a time where you need to have a life that is your own, and I think it's important. So that's just a little comment. And,
well, I think it's a great comment, and I think Joanna Lee, you are an excellent writer, and the way that you expressed your stories and your poetries and poems, I think it's just very well done, excellent. And we really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that our audience also enjoyed it. And that's why by helping each other, helping ourselves by helping others, and it inspires us by just talking to people like you and Tom. And I couldn't wait to have another session. I think that our audience can enjoy and learn from us. And I'm so sure that we also can learn from our audience.
Absolutely.
So maybe hopefully that next session that they can call and tell us how we can improve our shows, how we can improve our writing, and if we are able to inspire them to start writing, we would like to hear from them as well. And I couldn't wait to read some of your works, and and I'm excited, and I want to thank you so much to sharing your time and your knowledge and your wisdom and your writing with our audience. And I just want to congratulate you, and I want to thank you for coming, Joanna Lee, and so do you, Tom. And I enjoy your writing, and you've been my friend for many years now. And I could wait to see your next book. And can you give a little story about your next book, about your novel? I know that the name is called The Land Under the Sea, is what it was?
Under the Lake.
Under the Lake, okay.
Yeah.
Well, just first time I heard it, so forgive me. So tell me a little bit about that storylines.
It's I've worked out an outline of it, and it's centered on colonial America, and it's a romance, and but it's based on the early technology of water power, And so there's a place in Pennsylvania where there are a lot of creeks, and actually they've dammed up the creeks outside of it's near Sellersville, Pennsylvania, in the Genius Belt of Pennsylvania, and they called it Lake Nakamixon. And I lived there for a few years growing up, and there's a couple grist mills under there, and it used to be like an early center of development, because the mills were sort of centers of commerce, and so their families became established who would gradually own several mills, and some of them became wealthy.
Right.
So I thought I'd center the story on this area that's under the lake, before it was dammed up and turned into a reservoir, and there was the walking purchase, with the Lenape Indians, was near there, and so not all the Lenape were moved out. Some chose to stay. So I wanted to have a story where a farmer's daughter falls in love with the miller's son, and as he goes off on his economic exploits, she has an affair with an Indian who has the traits that he lacks, that her husband lacks, and so he has gentleness and balance in his life, and so I wanted to contrast the two.
I see.
And then have a reconciliation in the end.
I see.
Because love conquers all, and I have hopefully a dramatic ending.
Well,
I'm
sounds
planning.
exciting.
So,
you'll be dramatic, all right.
And don't
I'm
give it
sure.
away.
Looking forward to reading that too. Then, well, I want to thank you so much. And once again, both of you inspired me to continue to write. And I wrote 2.5 books already. I'm not finished my 3rd book yet, and 2 have been published. And so tell us how we can get your book.
Well, I have Journey to Shoshone,
Right.
which is on Amazon.com. So you just go to Amazon and search for Journey to Shoshone.
Well,
and I have another.
Here?
Well, this is
That's the book I wrote.
So that's been out a couple of years now. And then I just published an ebook called To Uru, which is a book of poetry, and it's the title comes from a tree, the tree of life. That's To Uru is the name the Siberian Eskimos use, and it's found in many cultures. So I was reading some Joseph Campbell. And in primitive mythology, they talked about the tree of life being, throughout the world. So I like the symbolism.
Okay.
So that's on Kindle.
Okay.
So you go to you can just Google it or go to Amazon and
Look
search
for your name.
Yeah, or J.T. Brown.
J.T. Brown.
To Uru. Tuuru.
Okay.
Joanna's always saying I name everything, with something that you can't pronounce. And, I'm afraid it's another one.
Well, dear friends, and if you need to contact me, you're welcome to go to my website, happylife.com, or email me, happylife@yahoo.com, to get more information about our show. Or if you want to be one of our audience and want to join us, you're welcome to email me, happylifebook@yahoo.com as one word. And if you want to read the Happy Life book, you can search my name, T.S.Chin, in Google, link it to Amazon for my Happy Life book. We also want to thank our friends, the show producer, Mr. Gardner, and a personal friend of mine, Akil. They help us to produce this show and for us and to share with our audience. And in the meantime, I want to thank our audience and thank you so much for watching. And you are our inspiration. Without you support and watching us, really there's no show. And once again, we look forward to working with both of you and hope that we can continue to encourage other people to write express their thoughts. And it's never too early or too late to learn. And writing is very simple. It's all about communication, putting it on a piece of paper. And once again, my name is P.S. Chin, and I enjoy having our special guest, Joanna Lee and Mr. Tom